From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes Novel Moms.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Novel Moms. You know, every time I get ready to do an episode, I think about, what is inspiring me this week? Is it the book? Because sometimes I come up with a book first and then figure out what would be the best meal to go along with it. And sometimes I pick this great dish and I want to find a book to go along with it. This week it was the food. I love the food, Cajun food, the food of Louisiana, and I wanted to make like my version of jambalaya. And I kept thinking about, what books have I read that came out of that culture? And there's a book, I think it was in the 90s, called The Divine Secrets of the Sisterhood. There was a movie with Sandra Bullock in it. It's a pretty good movie, but the book was better. It's always better. And the book is so rich with these relationships between these women that have known each other for 50, 60 years. And I wanted to make something equally as rich that goes along with it, and jambalaya, I think, pairs with it perfectly. So this week, we're going to make Gretchen's version of jambalaya, and inspired by the divine secrets of the Sisterhood. Jambalaya is different than a gumbo. A lot of people kind of confuse the two. Gumbo usually doesn't have rice in it, whereas jambalaya does. They're way different, and people that know way more about Cajun food could probably explain it to you. But I wanted to make my version of jambalaya, which has all the same elements that you find in some of the traditional jambalayas. So we're going to start with what people call the trinity. Sometimes if you watch cooking shows, they talk about a mirepoix, which is just a base that you can use for any type of stock or soup. And typically it is carrots, onions, and celery. But in Cajun cooking, the trinity, as they call it, is celery, onion, and green pepper instead of the carrots. So if you like and prefer carrots, go ahead and use carrots. So I'm going to cut up my celery, and a lot of people don't know this. They don't use the leaves of the celery, but the leaves of the celery actually has way more celery flavor than the stalk itself. So I'm just going to use about that much. And you want to dice this up pretty small. So I'm going to cut it this way first, because I want it all to be really tiny, and so it kind of pervades my soup, my jambalaya, and makes it extra flavorful. So I'm going to make these kind of tiny little cuts. So that's a third of our trinity. There's our celery. We're going to use an onion. Last is green pepper. Take out all that white stuff in the middle. That's what holds the bitterness. I'm not a big fan of green pepper, but I do like it in these types of dishes. Alright, so there is our trinity. So I'm going to take some olive oil and put it into the bottom of a soup pan, about a tablespoon, and I want to get that heated up. While we're waiting for the oil to heat up, I'm going to dice up about a pound of chicken breast. If you prefer thighs, that's fine. Okay, so we're going to add the chicken to that hot oil. You want it to sizzle the second you go in, because you want it to get brown. In the book, Sisterhood, who's the main character, she is a grown-up, she's a writer, and she writes a lot about her experiences as a child, and it goes with this article, and her mother flips out, and so the whole book is about her mother's childhood friends kind of trying to teach her who her mother really is and why she was the way she was, and it's a great book. And if you don't have time to read the book, go watch the movie. It's actually not a bad interpretation of the book. We don't want to cook the chicken all the way. I just want it to get a little bit brown, cooked, so it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. I'm also going to add this is about a pound of andouille sausage. You could use summer sausage. I use a turkey version of it. All up to you. It's already cooked, so you don't have to worry about it, you know, being raw. Okay, and then we're just gonna add it right in with the chicken. Even though the sausage is already cooked, it's gonna kind of meld with the chicken, and it's gonna give off some of its own liquids and juices and kind of flavor everything, so that when we start adding some of the other stuff, it's gonna just all mix together and taste delicious. The other major difference between a jambalaya and a gumbo is a gumbo starts with a roux. Remember, I showed you a few things, a few episodes where we made the flour and the fat, or the butter, the oil mixed together, made like a paste. That's kind of what a roux is. And a gumbo takes a very long time. I don't know what I'm talking like this. The roux itself has to cook for like half an hour, and it's insane. Jambalaya can get thrown together a little bit quicker. Now, I've got all those meats kind of working together. I'm going to throw in all of that mirepoix, or that trinity. We've got onions, green pepper, celery, and just get it moving. And you want to saute this until all those veggies are cooked. The onions are translucent, everything's soft and flavorful. We're just going to saute this up for a few more minutes. Okay, so while that stuff's all getting juicy and yummy, I'm going to chop up some Swiss chard. Now, this is not something you find in traditional gumbo, but some people do add some kind of leafy green, like a escarole, or you could use kale, would be really good. The thing with chard or with kale is you want to make sure it's clean, because sometimes they're grown in sand, so you want to wash all that off. But I think this just gives a pretty color to the jambalaya and gives it a little bit extra vitamins and yummy minerals. And it looks big now, but it's going to cook down just like spinach. So I'm just going to dice this up pretty fine. Anything that's leafy like this, if you're having a hard time chopping it, you bunch it and chop it that way so it's nice and tight. Another dice through it this way. Delicious. Okay, we're going to add this in a little bit, but I want to have that ready to go. I'm going to add about a handful, like a small handful, maybe like a tablespoon and a half of garlic powder. You can do fresh garlic. Keep it moving. You can see that my onions are kind of translucent now. Things are kind of cooked. Probably pretty good. And they're going to cook even more in the broth. So it's okay if you want to leave them still with a little bit of tooth to them. It's great because my sausage has got a little bit of brown on it. Chicken's getting cooked. The next thing we're going to add is, this is about 2 good-sized tomatoes chopped up. I already had these chopped up, ready to go. Again, mix it all around. Jambalaya is just like it sounds. It's jumbled up flavors. You want to get everything mixed around, and you want to cook this for another couple minutes until those tomatoes start to break down and form like a little base for our broth. While I am getting all those tomatoes cooked and delicious, I'm going to add in probably about a tablespoon of crushed red pepper flakes. That's going to make it spicy, so if you can't handle the spice, you can use cayenne or maybe like a little paprika if you want a little bit less spicy. My sister-in-law is actually from New Orleans, that area. My brother and her live in Houston, and her whole family loves spicy. So I don't know how she feels about my level of spice, but I'm somewhere like in the middle. Like if out of a 10, I'm maybe a 5 or a 6. My husband can handle like the hottest of the hot. I can't do that. I'm going to add some black pepper. So basically you just don't want to see big pieces of tomato. See how a tomato is just kind of like broken, and it's just like they've disintegrated into my sauce, and they just basically almost melt with the heat. Okay. Next thing I'm going to add 4 cups of water. You could use broth. I like to use water. You could use vegetable, chicken stock, beef stock, whatever kind of stock you like, but just get 4 cups of it. You have to keep in mind that a lot of the components, like the sausage, we're going to add some beans. Like, so a lot of these things are kind of have their own salt to them, so you got to kind of keep an eye on what has sodium and stuff because it can be overwhelmingly salty. If you do end up using water and you want it to have a little bit more flavor, more of that like chicken background flavor, you could add some bouillon cubes or some powdered bouillon, and that would be great. Just maybe a tablespoon or two. It's looking absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to add 1 can of kidney beans, red kidney beans. Alright, so we're waiting for our broth and all those vegetables and the meat and all that yummy stuff to kind of come up to a boil so I can add the rest of this. So while I'm waiting, since I already told you my decision process on like how I pick foods and recipes and things, then I might just, you know, tell you some more Novel Mom secrets. Like my mother asked me, where do you put the stuff that you're throwing? Are you throwing that on the floor like the garbage? Like, no, Mom, I am not throwing food on the floor. I actually have a garbage can. It's tucked underneath my little table so that nobody can see it but me. Don't worry. Don't worry. As soon as this comes up to a boil, I'm going to add that Swiss chard that we chopped up, and then we're going to let it just sit on the burner for about 45 to 50 minutes just to cook and get all those flavors together. And then we're going to come back and add the last 2 components. First, we're going to add some rice, and we also have some shrimp. The shrimp's already cooked, but even if it weren't, shrimp cooks really fast. So you don't have to add this until the very, very, very end, because otherwise it'll be really tough and chewy. So make sure you try it. If it's too salty at this point, you can't get rid of salt. The longer something cooks, the more the salt intensifies. So you may need to add a little bit more broth to kind of cut down on the saltiness. But definitely try it before you let it sit, because you want to kind of gauge what do you need to add, what do you need to, you know, kind of balance out. Oh, it's so good. So now we're going to add that beautiful Swiss chard. Just stick it all in there. Stir it up. It's going to wilt, and it's going to add some beautiful texture, color, and flavor to that delicious jambalaya. All right, so now we've got everything incorporated. We've got it up to a boil. I'm just going to put a lid on it. It'll be a little less than half of the way up on the dial so that it's still simmering. And I'm going to set a timer for 45 minutes, and I'm not going to touch it in that whole time. Okay, when I see you again, we're going to add the rice. So it's been 45 minutes. Let's go ahead and check our jambalaya. That as it's cooked, you see the color's gotten a little bit richer and darker. The greens have cooked down. Everything's kind of melded together. The chicken is so tender, it's falling apart, which is awesome. And now, all we're going to do is we're going to add in, I'm using about 1.5 cups of brown rice. You can use whatever kind of rice you like. Obviously, you just got to give it enough time to cook. This is an instant rice. So I'm just going to mix it all together. Get a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. Put the lid back on it and let it cook for about another 10 minutes until the rice is all done. And then we'll add our shrimp and we'll be ready to eat our jambalaya. Okay, let's check it out. Yum. Oh. I am adding about 1.5 cups of cooked shrimp. If you can get fresh, I live in the desert, can't get fresh very easily or very cheaply. So use what you got. You could add clams, you could do crab, you could do all kinds of different seafood, but we're going to do shrimp to keep it a little traditional. And all you're going to do, because they're already cooked, I don't have to worry about them cooking all the way through, but if they weren't already cooked, I swear to God, mix them up with your jambalaya, let them sit in there for maybe 3 minutes, and they will be done, because shrimp cooks really fast. As soon as it's pink, it's done. Okay, let's try it. Get a little bit of the beans, a little bit of the rice, chicken. It's really nice. It's got a little bit of a kick from that red pepper. I probably could add even a little bit more, maybe red hot or Tabasco sauce. This is so good. The beans and everything that we cooked it in have made like this beautiful thick broth, and the rice is cooked and tender, and we've got all the different kinds of meats which give it different texture. and the smokiness of the sausage kind of adds that extra dimension to the jambalaya as a whole. This is ridiculously good, if I do say so myself. Woo! So good. And that's what I love about this, because again, like the book, where you've got all these different generations, different people coming together to kind of help somebody out and make a difference in somebody's life, these will make a difference to your face. I love this. Go eat some jambalaya. Have a great week, and I will see you next week on Noms.
From classics to children's books, you never know what she's gonna cook when Gretchen makes novel moms.